It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Wednesday, November 29th, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. Today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have Health is Happiness, the Foundational Figures Word Study, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. Whew, everyone, how are you doing and how is your week? It is already hump day. It is the middle of the week, and I hope you guys have enjoyed the first half of this. Well, not even the first half. We only have a day after this, 2.5 days left before December 1st. Right? Not a lot of time, but I hope you guys are looking forward to ending this month really well, of course, with a lot of repentance. Don't forget, tomorrow is Q&A Thursday, so get those questions ready. Send them to me as soon as you can. If you haven't yet, go ahead, leave a like and comment to build our community. Just super happy for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up and support each other each and every day. This week's Sunday message title, Treat the Lord According to Your Faith. Great message. We've been going over it over the last 2 days and hope you guys have enjoyed those word studies too. So I've been in Taiwan now for a little over a week. So it's been about 8-9 days and I'm just really enjoying my time. A lot of old friends I haven't seen in a long time too. I didn't realize there's one good friend of mine. He is in charge of the entire choir, I believe, in all of Taiwan. It's Rungzhou. And those guys don't know, I actually met him, we've been friends for 18 years, and I have a ton of stories with him where we were missionizing and pioneering a new church in England from 2005, so very, very close with him too. Yeah, I can't believe it's been 18 years since we've known each other. It's just amazing to see each other chatting about old times and what is happening today, and just, for me, we both looked at each other and we're kind of like, wow, we're still here and we've made it even over this difficult time. And it made me even more thankful for every person I meet. And I just want to see more and more people because you get to meet the people that are very resilient and strong in faith. Like no matter how hard the tribulations are, they are still here, right? And I do know that a lot of people in the future, when they come back, they're going to have those regrets. Right, they are. That's just, like I said, when they come back. So those that don't come back, I'm not sure if they'll have regrets, but especially those that come back to this history realizing that they were wrong, they're only left with regrets. Right, so meeting these old friends was something that I was very, very thankful, very, very thankful to meet with these people. One thing's really interesting. There's one thing really interesting about my trip, and I've told you this a little bit before, but it becomes a little bit more profound to me now, is like I'm literally flying on the wings of the Holy Spirit. Like, I was telling you guys before, everything is a one-way ticket to everywhere. I bought a one-way to Korea. Then while in Korea, I bought a ticket to Taiwan. Half my trip is done in Taiwan. I still haven't bought my next ticket out yet. So I kind of feel that the Holy Spirit wants me to stay in Taiwan a little bit longer. That's just the feeling. I like it here. I really do. I haven't spent a lot of time here, but the people here are really amazing, and the members here are very passionate and strong. And just meeting more and more people. I'm not sure if God has opened up the door for the next destination yet. And like I said, it's kind of exciting and scary at the same time, not knowing when I'm leaving and where I'm going. So yeah, I don't know. For you guys, I have a question for you guys. Could you guys live like this? Because it's just way too much uncertainty. But it's kind of interesting because it's bringing me back to the times I was missionizing all over the world and I didn't know where I was going next. Sometimes, like there's one time I went to South Africa and my 3 month tourist visa was finishing and I was kind of stuck like, God, I don't even know where I'm going next. And everything was taken care of within it was like 1 week left and everything was taken care of by the time there was 3 days left. Ticket, everything else, the destination. It was a lot of discussion with Sunseam and stuff like that too. So it's exciting just to be able to be led by where the Holy Spirit wants me to go. but it's also kind of scary at the same time, like, where am I going next kind of thing. One thing I realized, here's one thing. This is how I know that Providence in Taiwan is really big. This is how I know. Today, randomly, I'm in a parking lot going to the elevator, and I randomly meet a blessed family, like a very, very young, brand new blessed family at the elevator. And right when we got to the elevator, we're like, hey, I know you. Oh yeah. And I'm like, and this is someone I know from Instagram. Never met them before. And this person's a dancer on the Passion Dance team. And I don't even know her name. I just know her Instagram handle is something like Small Beat, right? So I'm just like going, oh, Instagram. She's like, yeah, Instagram, Pastor Sky. I'm like, yeah. And we just took a picture together, and then she posted and stuff like we just randomly met. So I found that to be really, really fun. That it was fun. But that's when I was like, wow, like Taiwan province is really big. Just randomly meeting people and just recognizing each other, right? It was quite amazing for me there. So that was something I'm very, very, it was quite exciting and quite amazed to see that type of thing happen. But it just made me realize how big Taiwan province is. And I would say, especially for all you listeners out there, I was telling you, like, Taiwan is my third largest listeners is from Taiwan. And I am very, very thankful for the listeners in Taiwan. I'm very, very thankful. Like, a lot of them also support on Patreon and stuff. So I'm thankful for the financial support and stuff. But I'm very, very inspired by the messages I received from listeners in Taiwan. Because now I'm in Taiwan, we get to meet each other. They tell me, like, it's real. I'm so inspired. Like, I meet this one member I met today at a campus meeting. She's been listening since the first episode, which is crazy. I'm like, whoa, you've been listening to, like, wow. Like, that was so surprising for me. I had another listener just text me and saying, they're thankful that I'm here in Taiwan, but they also said, like, they originally listened to my podcast for the English, to get better at English. But then as they're listening, they receive, like, grace and inspiration, new ways to think about the word studies and stuff. And they're, like, so grateful and thankful. And the one common denominator all the listeners have is they said it really helped them through the dark time this year. Like, through the most difficult time this year, they were very much helped by the podcast. And for me, like, I was so inspired because meeting these people and receiving those messages and them telling me exactly why they were inspired by the podcast. The reason why it's so inspiring, because it really helps me to see the reality of how God is working through the podcast. Like, that's what, like, it hits me more and more. The more and more people I meet talk about the podcast, it's like God is working through this podcast. And there would be no way I would know this was going on until I would actually move, like, meeting people in Korea, meeting people here in Taiwan and such. And what I realized is, if I just stayed in Vancouver and just did this podcast, like staring at a wall and just doing these podcasts, I would never know how much God is working through it and how much this is really God's doing and not my own. And, like, that, for me, that's so scary, because I think this is quite natural, is when you do something for a long time. Like, I'm doing this, remember, think about this. I'm getting close to 970 episodes, closing in on 1,000, right? And I thought to myself, like, wait a second, like, there were some times when I was doing this podcast, you kind of sit there and wonder to yourself, is this really making an impact? Is this really beneficial to Providence? Or am I doing this for my own vanity? Like, it's because I just want to talk to people and stuff. I just want to do this. And sometimes you sit there in doubt about my own self. But after talking to more and more people, receiving these messages, it's really moving and inspiring to see how much God is working through this podcast. And I think it's just God's doing a lot of different things through me traveling to Korea and Taiwan so far. And I would say that one of the reasons, not the biggest, but one of the reasons is definitely to see how much God has been working through this podcast. And it makes me more thankful, and it makes me someone who is like, I'm very humbled by it. I'm really humbled by it. And it makes me realize all the more how much it is God that's doing it. Because I'm talking to a wall every day. Right now, I'm talking into a bunch of pillows. That's what I'm doing. I'm talking to a bunch of pillows right now because all I'm doing is voice record. I don't see the faces. I don't see what people are like. So for me, it's a very humbling experience, and just seeing that, man, the only one that can do this is God, right? I was just very, very thankful and grateful. So I'm thankful and grateful to, especially right now, because I'm in Taiwan. I'm very thankful to all the Taiwanese listeners. You guys are the third most, in my podcast analytics, you guys are the third most country listening to my podcast. So I am very, very grateful and thankful, and hoping that we can continue this MSD family and be able to make more and more history through this too, right? Today, right now it's about 11:30 p.m. And the reason is because I had a meeting with campus members today. Just, it wasn't like a big meeting. It wasn't even official. Just meeting some campus members from about 2 or 3 different churches. It was really, I was very, very inspired to see the young members that have been working really, really hard. But more importantly for me, seeing these young members make it through this difficult year. Think about it, guys. I'm 45 and a pastor. I've been a head leader, a missionary, and it was hard for me. So I can't imagine how hard it was for the campus members too. But it was really inspiring to see all of them make it through and running really, really hard. And I also felt like I gave some testimony and I just talked about my experiences and such. But I also felt how difficult it was. I can't imagine how difficult it is for all the campus members because they work so hard, but especially in this difficult year of 2023, how much there probably isn't fruit to show for all their efforts they're putting in. So I shared that story. I've shared with you guys before about the time I was in England, and I went to England as a missionary, and I evangelized the first person in 3 months. Now, you got to know how crazy that is, because since 1999, when Sunseem first went there, Sunseem tried his best to evangelize, couldn't evangelize anyone. A church was set up there. They set up a church, couldn't evangelize anyone for like 6 years. I come in from Canada, just this fresh person, 27 years old, as a pioneering pastor, and it took me 3 months to evangelize and pass one person. And for me, that's like a crazy miracle if you think about that. And it could be something that makes me arrogant, because I'm like, oh, look at me. You guys tried for 6 years. Even Sunseem tried, but here I am. I do it in 3 months kind of thing. But the one most inspiring part was when Sunseem was the first person to try to evangelize in the UK. He went to Oxford, and in Oxford he was evangelizing every day for 2 weeks. And he held this huge party at the end because he invited everyone to come over to his house to have a party. And that last day, he not a single person showed up. Sunseem had all the food. He was dressed up in his suit. And even my friends who were there with him said that it was so sad to see Sunseem didn't even touch the food. He just walked into his room because he was so sad that not a single person came. And in 1999, Sunseem was so sorry to God for spending all that money, spending all that time, but not having a single fruit come. And when Sunseem was leaving the UK, he was riding a train to go to Milan, Italy. And as he was taking the train, he was so sorry to God, repenting to God. And when he looked outside in the sky, he saw a rainbow. And it was God's sign to him that there's a promise that there will be life in England. So Sunseem took that promise and said, oh, there's going to be life. And one of the most amazing, like one of the signs that Sunsim wrote. You know when Sunsim signs like a large piece of paper, like an artwork, right? But what he wrote when he left England was, sow in tears, reap with joy. And what Sunsim was saying is, people have different roles when it comes to evangelism. And some people, their sole role is to sow in tears, which means they will never see the fruit actually being harvested. They'll never see it, right? And it's kind of like the situation. Sunsim was the one that sowed with tears. And I went there in 2005 and 2006, and we started evangelizing more and more. And in 2006, in August, when I reported to Sunsim that we have this many, like four lives have passed, and we now have a church, a place to worship in church for our church services and such. Sunsim said, I'll give you a church a name. And he gave our church the name Promise Church, because we were the promise. In like 1999 was the rainbow he saw, which was the promise that there would be life. And when we reported it, Sunsim said, your name is Promise Church because you are the promise that is fulfilled that I got 1999. But think about this, 1999, and we became a church in 2006, which means it was exactly 7 years. 7 years for that life to come through, for those seeds of tears that were sown. They actually came to fruition 7 years later. And, it's kind of something I was telling the campus, like, hey, you're not going to always see the fruits. And it's okay, because some of us, our job is to sow in tears, and some of us, our job is to reap with joy. Like, think about me, guys. Something was in tears. 6 years of people trying to evangelize in England, couldn't do it. And I came in, this hot shot from Canada, and in 3 months I evangelized one person, right? I reap with joy. But I have to also realize, understand, the reaping with joy never comes without the sowing in tears. And this is why we have different roles. So I really want to share these things with them so that they can realize that, hey, it's not all about, a number. And this is something I share with you guys too, is it's not about the number, right? Like, I think one of the worst goals to have is to say we're going to pass 10 people this year. Because passing is not something we do. Passing is between that newcomer and God. Because a newcomer has free will, he has the ability to say no. He has the ability to do something else, right? And that's why we have to realize, if passing is not our responsibility, we can't make people pass. We can't make people believe or come to this history. What is our role? Our role is to show and give the love of God to these people. And that's what our role is. And that's where the end of our role is too. We shouldn't force people to accept or come to church or services or whatever. Our role is to show the love of God. And that's why I think our goals need to change. It's not like we're going to pass 10 people. It's better to say that, hey, we're going to meet 1,000 people this semester. That's a different goal, like just meeting. And it puts the pressure off of them to pass people because, like I said, it's not our duty to do that. We got to love people. And if we can love people and show God's love to everyone, then whether they pass or not, we've done what we've done, and we should celebrate that. So I really spent a lot of time. It was really good spending that time with the campus there too. Hey, the poll is going pretty strong right now. I'm very, very thankful for all of you that have actually filled out the poll, right? And guess what number one is? The number one is 48% is all of the above. So what kind of blessings are you expecting at the end of 2023? Almost half of you have said that physical, spiritual, and Sunsim will be released. Like, for me, that is really shocking and surprising. It really is. And I like it. I love it because it means that people are way more hopeful than they were before. That the number one, like almost half, is thinking that all these blessings will happen. The second one is physical plus spiritual, is 27%. And then the third one, which is shocking to me, is they think that just Sunsim will be released at the end of this year. I find that one shocking too, because I'm like, I don't think that's going to happen. But I'm like, wow, that's great. We've really had a change in our mentality and our attitude. That number one, like the number three thing is that Sunsim will be released. And then The only physical, only spiritual is like only physical is 0% and only spiritual is 2%. And honestly, I actually thought only spiritual would be the biggest. Like I think some people might be negative and think to themselves, oh, yeah, we're not going to receive anything that big. It's just going to be all spiritual, so we're not going to really be able to notice that stuff anyways. But it's really, I think it's a great sign that we are more hopeful. We are praying really well. And I would love to see all of the above, right? For myself, I put physical and spiritual. Sunseem's release, I think, just personally for myself, I'm looking forward to the appeal or the Supreme Court as the biggest change, right? But just to see how hopeful people are, that makes me hopeful too. Last thing before we get into today's, today's foundational figures. Oh, someone sent me this great article, right? And I haven't seen it. This article came out, I think, last week, right? I didn't see this one. Very interesting article. And I've never seen this one before, so I'll leave the link in the description below. But it's a very interesting one because it's a negative article, okay? And it's about the Taedunsan Hotel. And the reason why this stuff came up is because there was this Korean TV show called I Live Alone. And one of those one of the singers from SHINee, I'm not sure if you guys know who SHINee is, but they stayed in the Taedunsan Hotel and they went to go climb Mount Taedun, right? But all this controversy came out because they're like, oh, you're supporting a JMS hotel, this, and this, right? And there's several, you guys can read it yourself, but it's all in Korean. But there's 3 or 4 different things that they stated in this article. The first one is they say that Sunseem went to the hotel and there were females with him, witnesses say. So there's the first thing that they're saying, okay? Second thing they say is when Sunseem was in the sauna in this hotel, Sunseem shared a photo of a naked woman's body that he said he drew it inside the, what happened is there's a drawing that's supposedly supposed to be Sunseem that Sunseem made inside the woman's sauna, right? And then what they're saying in this article is that Sunseem was sharing a photo of a woman's naked body. And he said that's how he drew this picture inside the woman's sauna. Okay? So there's the second one. Third one is, this is about the picture of this, the picture in the sauna, right? So Sunseem drew a picture in the sauna of a female, right? This is what they're alleging. And that the head is the face and the head is drawn as fruits. And then he also draws the private part. So former believers who left Providence are suspicious of the hotel sauna mural because it is similar to Sunseem's painting. It looks similar to it, okay? And then the fourth thing is drawings that Sunseem made. So they're looking at some of Sunseem's drawings. And 2 things they said. Number one is they said that members received drawings of naked women from Sunseem, and there's another drawing that they say Sunseem made showing a man and woman sitting in front of each other, and the man is touching the woman's privates. And then they show the actual picture, but blurred out a little bit, but you could still see what the general picture looks like. Okay, so those are the 4 different accusations or things they're kind of telling the people. Okay, so of course immediately there's going to be arguments coming out is why would Sunseem make drawings of naked women, or did Sunseem share a pic of a naked woman in the sauna? Is that true? What does this all mean? And for me is as I see this article, it's very interesting, but for myself, I'm going to tell you guys, let's get reasonable and rational about this. That's what I'm going to say is get reasonable and rational about this. Okay? What does that mean? So let's take a look at these things that the article's saying one by one. Number one is they say eyewitnesses say Sunseem came to the hotel with female believers. Now, this is actually, for me, it means nothing to me. Why? Because it's not evidence for anything. So Sunseem came to the hotel with females. Okay, so Sunseem has a traveling party, and there's males and females, both, constantly, right? So here they're saying there's only he came there with females, but they're failing to say that there were males there, right? And it just seems like they're trying to stoke the flames. Oh my gosh, he was at a hotel and there were females. So for me, it's like, why did they leave out the male bodyguards that were there, right? Making the feeling like there was only females. And second thing is it wrong to travel in a group to a place with females, like even a hotel? Does this mean that everyone that goes to a hotel and there are females in their party, it means that there is sexual misconduct going on? And the answer is absolutely not. What I say now might sound weird, but this is normal. How many people have been to a hotel and there's a male and a female? Does that guarantee that there's something sexual going on? The answer is no. What, several eyewitnesses saw him go to a hotel and there were females in his party? It means nothing to me. And it convinces me of nothing either. And obviously, this cannot be used in the court of law either. And this is why they're only saying it here to make people assume. They'll give them the thoughts in their mind and they'll say something like this, and people who are already emotionally swayed by it are going to be like, oh, what does that mean? But the answer is, it's because this can't even be used in court. They're using it just to try to convince people or sway them emotionally. If they said, oh, Sunsim is like, yeah, he's got sexual misconduct. Why? I saw him at a hotel and there were females. You would be laughed out of court. So here's kind of a mind test I would do. The mind test is this. Let's pretend there were no rumors this year. Let's pretend there is no trial. Okay? And let's just say that you see Sunsim arrive at the Daejinsan Hotel and there's females in his party. What would you be thinking? Would you be saying something like, oh, this is wrong? Would you be suspicious? Or are you only suspicious because of all the rumors and stuff you've heard from this year, right? That's a way to test your mind. Are you only influenced? Because if there was no rumors, would you be thinking the same thoughts? And the answer is probably not. In the past, never thought there was a problem. We know the type of character Sunsim is, and without those rumors, we wouldn't be thinking that way, right? So if you're thinking reasonably, you would think the exact same way in both instances, whether there's rumors or not, right? That's where you have the reasonable mind. Your reason, it's not swayed by emotion. It's very logical, right? So that's one of the ways you can test your mind. Let's go into the second part of this article. People say that Sunsim shared a photo of a naked woman in the sauna when he drew a picture in the woman's sauna, right? And basically this is what? This is absolute hearsay. We have no idea who those eyewitnesses are. It doesn't say, oh, we've talked to 3 people. No, they just said eyewitnesses say. So they're just going by someone else saying that, oh, there were eyewitnesses. No one can prove this either. What does this mean? Like, for me, there's no proof. This is strictly hearsay. There is no one, if this is real journalism, they'd be like, oh, we talked to these 2-3 people, and we've got their eyewitness, this, and this, right? And think about this. If you think about it from a very reasonable and rational thought process, just because someone, right? Let's pretend it's true. Let's just pretend. Are you someone who sexually assaults someone because you share a lewd picture with a friend? Because if that's the case, then shouldn't we start being suspicious of every person who owns a porn site or every person who has a membership to a porn site, shares these types of files with other people? Are they all people that should be in suspicion of sexual assault? Because that's the logic we're giving. That if you share a lewd picture, then, oh, you must have sexual problems, right? Like sexually assaulting and women and stuff like this. And my point is not to say that this actually happened. I'm not saying that it happened. I'm just saying that this is the logic behind us, like people thinking that Sunsim is guilty because he showed a lewd picture or a picture of a naked woman. That's just my point, right? My point is that the logic is flawed, that if someone shares a picture of a naked woman, they are guilty of sexual assault. The logic is completely flawed, right? And like I said, this is just an example. It's a mental exercise. I'm saying if it was actually happening, does that prove that he did sexual assault? And the answer is absolutely not. It's completely illogical, right? So, and yeah, it's all hearsay. Oh, we heard there was eyewitnesses that said this, and they saw, that he shared a photo about a naked woman, right? Third part of the article says there's a mural that was drawn by Sunsim in the woman's sauna, And the first thing you'll read in the article is they are not sure that it is even sunseams, but they say it looks like it. For me, which is ridiculous. So it's not even confirmed. But people say, ex-members say it looks like it. Okay? So there's the first problem is it's not even confirmed. As a journalist, they're not confirming it. They're just saying it looks like it. Second thing is kind of weird is where did they get their interpretation of this mural? Well, the article says that they got it from a Methodist Heresy Damage Prevention Center pastor. And they give the pastor's name Cha Jae-young, right? He's the one that sent the protest to NBC immediately, right? And basically what he said, he's the one that's saying, oh, this is what it looks like. Like this is what sunseam usually does. So this is definitely from sunseam and it symbolizes this. So you have someone interpreting it who's not even in Providence, but he's from the Methodist Heresy Damage Prevention Center. Doesn't make any sense that they're using him to interpret it. Also, another hotel official said, this painting's been there since 2018. Why are people talking about it now? It's already been there for like 5 years. Why is it only being talked about now? So, this is like, a lot of this stuff doesn't really make sense, right? The last one they brought up is the drawing, like sunseam sent drawings of naked women to people, right? So for me, I would like to see those drawings, what they actually look like. Are they artistic or are they explicit? Explicit meaning like, kind of like lewd and gross, whatever it is, right? Is it artistic or is it explicit? Because if it's artistic, there's so much that you can go into this. Like, that's why I would love to see the drawings. Is it artistic or is it explicit? The second thing is, what does this prove? Nothing, because it's only speculation right now that, oh, sunseam did this. Oh, there's no pictures of it. It's just, that's what they heard. And if you think about the logic of this is ridiculous too. This is what they're saying in the article. If someone draws a naked woman, then they are a sexual predator. Which means how many artists in history would be in suspicion of sexual assault? Then you're going to talk about like Leonardo da Vinci, Monet, all these great painters are going to be like, oh, so then they're all probably in suspicion of sexual assault. That makes no sense. Just because you draw a naked woman, and you'd have to look at, is it artistic or is it explicit? And once again, these drawings and such, they would never be used in the court of law. And this is why they're putting it out in an article, right? That's why, once again, put the mental test in. Before you heard any accusations, would you think the same way of any of sunseam's drawings? Or would it just be something you look at in the past? Like say, oh, yeah, sunseam drew those things. It was fine. But only now, after you hear all the rumors, then you're like, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with him. Right? That means you've been emotionally compromised, because a reasonable and rational person is going to be the same regardless of there's an accusation or not. Right? That's what the court of law is supposed to be like. And of course, that last thing they said, there's a drawing shown, and this was actually shown in the article, of a man and a woman sitting in front of each other, and they are saying that the man is touching the private parts of the woman. You can see the picture, and it's blurred out, right? And you can see the outlines. That's not what's happening there. Or it's very, very subjective. Very subjective. But they blurred it to make it look like it's something like, oh my gosh, we can't even show it to you. But you can kind of see what's in the picture. And you could look and say, there's no need to see exactly what's happening in the picture. You could see the picture. You don't need to blur it. Right? They're saying that so that you will think that way. It's a super simple drawing. It's not even like an explicit drawing. It's a super simple drawing of two people sitting in front of each other. It's not in detail. And it seems like they're trying to put their thoughts onto you that, oh, this is what that person's doing. I think this would be a great exercise we can do. Take that exact photo and go around onto the streets and ask people what they think about the photo. Like if you're really uncertain whether this, that you're thinking the right way or the wrong way, go do a test. Go to people on the streets who have no idea who sunseam is or who made that drawing, and ask them what they see and see what they actually say. And then you'll get an idea if your mind is in the wrong place. right? You're going to get an idea of what people really think about that drawing and whether someone really thinks that it shows that a man's hand is on the private parts of a woman. I would love to do that. Actually, that might be something cool they could do in Korea too. So for me, all in all, most of this article is speculation. It's hearsay and speculation and the media trying to put their thoughts into what you should interpret these pictures as. It's not about evidence. Since none of this would be used in a court of law, they're just using this articles to sway people emotionally from what I see, right? And, I'm going to be honest with you. Some people look at this, they're going to be swayed by this article. There will be people who are swayed by it, for sure. And it's okay, because everyone is dealing with difficulty in this stressful time in their own way. But for us, we need to be really reasonable and rational about all this media that's coming out. And even if you look at America and Canada, many people don't even trust the media anymore because it's so biased. It's so one-sided, right? We don't even consider it a reliable source of news anymore. And, for me, I would have to agree at some level that that's true in North America. But I will leave the link in the article, the link of the article below. It's in Korean, so you might want to Google translate it. But for me, I'm just it could look bad if you're thinking that way. But if you're reasonable and rational, you would not be thinking that way at all, right? It's a huge sway. It means that you've been emotionally compromised if you're thinking only that way. Yeah. So, like I said, try the mental tests or take that picture and go out and meet people and see what they think about it, right? Either way. Okay. So, that is my first segment for today. Oh, went on a little bit longer than I expected, but I hope you guys really enjoy these podcasts as usual, which means before we get into today's, the foundational figures of Christianity, today we're going to go into someone, his name is St. John Chrysostom. Okay, so very, very interesting and amazing figure in Christianity and one of the foundational figures too. But before we get into that, let's get into today's first break of the day.
Don't worry if you get no signs, 'cause everything will be alright.
All right, so let's get into today's word study. And of course, every Wednesday we have the foundational figures word study. And today we're going to go into this very, very interesting figure. His name is Saint John Chrysostom. Okay, and many of you, like I said, most of these foundational figures, you've probably never heard of them, right? And the word Chrysostom the word means golden mouth. Now, what does that mean? Because he was very eloquent in speech. So basically, he is someone who's generally considered one of the most prominent doctors of the Greek church and the greatest preacher ever heard in a Christian pulpit, generally speaking, right? So very, very interesting. We're going to go into his life, John Chrysostom. So one thing you need to know about him is he was born in Antioch, which was the second city of the eastern part of the Roman Empire. And during the entire 4th century, so this is still during the time of Christian religious struggle and persecution, this is when there was trouble in the empire, right? And it wasn't just Christians, but in Antioch, there were pagans, Manichaeans, Gnostics, Arians, Apollinarians, Jews, and they were all making, they were like evangelizing there in Antioch. And of course, the Catholics too, they were separated by the schism between two bishops. There was Bishop Meletius and Paulinus, right? So Chrysostom's youth, from his youth, fell into really troubled times. So his father, Secundus, was an officer of high rank in the Syrian army. He died soon after John Chrysostom was born. So his wife, his mother, Anthusa, only 20 years old, took sole charge of the two children, which was John and his elder sister. And thank God she was someone who was a woman of intelligence and character and instructed John in piety, but also sent him to the best schools of Antioch, right? So a very, very interesting story. Like that's how he kind of grew up without a father and such. And Chrysostom was someone attained considerable Greek scholarship and classical culture. And he later kind of disowned in his later days. But it's very, very interesting because he kind of alleges there's like hostility to classical learning. But he also had misunderstanding of certain passages in which he defends the philosophy of Christianity against the myths of the heathen gods, right? But yeah, very, very interesting. That's kind of where his youth is. He kind of lived that troubled life. He eventually became a lector, right? So there was a very huge turning point in his life when he met the Bishop Meletius, right? And Meletius was very earnest, mild, winning character. It just captivated Chrysostom in such a way that he soon began to withdraw from classical and profane studies, and he devoted himself to an ascetic and religious life, right? Basically, his life was just studying holy scriptures and frequenting the sermons of Meletius. And 3 years later, he was baptized and then ordained a lector. And, he basically wanted to live that perfect life. So his life was basically prayer, manual labor, and the study of Holy Scriptures. That were the chief three things he did for his occupation, right? And it's probably safe to say that most of his early writings were very about ascetic and monastic subjects. Okay. Now, 4 years later, Chrysostom resolved to live as an anchorite in one of the caves near Antioch, which basically means he's living like the poor life, living in a cave. But then his health became really bad. Because, indiscreet watchings and fastings and frost and cold and, basically he had to return to Antioch to regain his health, and he resumed his office as lector in the church. Okay. So then later on, what happened is he became a deacon. He was ordained as a deacon. Okay. So, Meletius was the person that he was following, but in 381, Meletius makes him a deacon. But just before he leaves for Constantinople, Meletius dies as president of the Second Ecumenical Council, and the successor of Meletius was Flavian. That's a new guy, okay? So basically ties of sympathy and friendship connected Chrysostom with Flavius, his new bishop. And as now he's a deacon, he had to assist at the liturgical functions, look after the sick and poor, probably charge in some degree with some teaching of some catechisms and stuff like that too. Okay, so and of course he continued his literary work, and we're thinking that scholars are thinking that this is where he composed his most famous book called On the Priesthood, right? So they're not really sure exactly when, but they say it's probably anywhere from 386 to 387. Okay, and then when you look even further, like of course he became a priest at Antioch. Okay, so when was this? In the year 386, Chrysostom was ordained priest by Flavian. And from that, this is kind of where his real importance of ecclesiastical history comes out from this point on when he becomes ordained a priest. So his chief task during the next 12 years was that of preaching, right? And, but, larger part of the popular religious instruction, education was probably upon Chrysostom at this time. Now, the earliest notable occasion which showed his power of speaking and his great authority was the Lent of 387. He delivered his sermons called On the Statues. So what happened is the people of Antioch, excited by the levy of new taxes, excited meaning not in a good way, had thrown down the statues of Emperor Theodosius. So, in the panic and fear of punishment which followed, Chrysostom delivered a series of 20 or 21 sermons full of vigor, consolatory, exhortative, tranquilizing, until Flavian, he delivered these powerful sermons until Bishop Flavian brought back from Constantinople the emperor's pardon. Okay? So, but the usual preaching of Chrysostom consisted in consecutive explanations of Holy Scripture, and he's got many famous and magnificent commentaries, which offers an inexhaustible treasure of dogmatic, moral, and historical knowledge of the transition from the 4th to the 5th century. And from the years 386 to 398 were the period of the greatest theological productivity of Chrysostom. So a period which alone would have assured him for forever a place amongst the first doctors of the church, right? So, basically Chrysostom was great orator, great theological writer, right? And from this same fact, we kind of infer that during this time, his fame had spread far beyond the limits of Antioch, and he's well known in the Byzantine Empire, especially in the capital. Okay? So what happened was, Chrysostom was thinking to himself that he would be taking over Flavian, right? But interesting thing happened is in 397, Nectarius, the bishop of Constantinople, which is the capital, died. So there's this rivalry in the capital for the vacant seat. Who's going to take it? And after months, it was known to the great disappointment of the competitors that the emperor, at the suggestion of his minister, had sent to the prefect of Antioch to call John Chrysostom out of the town without the knowledge of the people and to send him straight to Constantinople. So, he was hurried to the capital, ordained Bishop of Constantinople in 398. And it was remember, it was great disappointment because a lot of people were thinking it was going to be other people, right? And it's the people even who were ordaining him were the ones that were thinking it was going to be someone else that they thought was going to be, it was their candidate. But the change for Chrysostom was great as it was unexpected. It wasn't an easy position because in Constantinople, it's a upstart metropolis, half Western, half Oriental, and luxury and intrigue always played the most prominent parts, right? And it's very, very interesting that he went into that type of setting. So, the first thing that Chrysostom did was he brought a reconciliation between Flavian and Rome. And Constantinople itself soon began to feel the impulse of a new ecclesiastical life. So one of the huge things that he did was reform. It reminds me of King Josiah, actually. He did crazy reform in Constantinople, right? So basically they said, quote unquote, he was sweeping the stairs from the top, right? So already he started to reduce the expenses of the episcopal household. He put an end to the frequent banquets. He lived less strictly than he had formerly lived as a priest and monk. And even the clergy, right? He forbid the clergy to keep there's a word I can't pronounce, but these are women housekeepers who had vowed virginity, right? So he forbade that, probably because there's problems happening because of this. He proceeded against others who were like into too much luxury and into scandal. He even excluded the ranks of the clergy, 2 deacons, one because they murdered someone and the other for adultery, and excluded them from the clergy. And even in the monks, who were very numerous even at the time of Constantinople, some had preferred to roam about aimlessly and without discipline. So Chrysostom confined them to their monasteries, and finally he took care of the ecclesiastical widows. Some of them were living in a worldly manner, and he obliged them either to marry again or to observe the rules of decorum demanded by their state. So after the clergy, Chrysostom turned his attention to his flock, and the same as he did in Antioch, he did in Constantinople with more reason, and he frequently preached against the unreasonable extravagances of the rich, and especially against the ridiculous finery in the matter of dress affected by women, whose age should have put them beyond such vanities. And some of them, like the widows, known for really preposterous taste, belonged to the court circle. And it seemed that the upper classes of Constantinople had not previously been accustomed to such language, but doubtless some felt the rebuke to be intended for themselves, and the offense given was the greater in proportion as the rebuke was the more deserved, right? So a lot of people showed themselves delighted with the sermons of their new bishop and frequently applauded him in the church. And they never forgot his care for the poor and miserable, and that in his first year he had built a great hospital with the money he had saved in his household. But Chrysostom had also very intimate friends among the rich and noble classes.
So, like in the beginning, many of the people were very friendly, and they were able to accept what the reforms that Chrysostom was actually doing. But of course, it didn't last very long because, people don't want change much, right? People don't like change, especially if you're losing power or people are making you feel guilty like you're doing something wrong, right? So like there's someone named Atropius, a former slave, but he became minister and consul. And he began to abuse his influence, like depriving wealthy people of their property and prosecuting others whom he suspected of being adversaries or rivals. And more than once, Chrysostom went himself to the minister to remonstrate with him and to warn him of the results of his own acts. But of course, it was without success. And, there's a lot of these things that, Chrysostom had to always step into. And this same Atropius, right, in 399, we're not really sure exactly why, but he fell into disgrace. And, he went into one of these ecclesiastical asylums. Like you can go to an asylum where you're protected, right? And it's funny because Atropius was one of the people who tried to abolish the immunity of the ecclesiastical asylums, but he fled to there. And even the people were, no one wanted to spare him. But Chrysostom even interfered when it came to someone who was against him, right? Delivering his famous sermon on Atropius, the fallen minister, and he was saved for the moment because Chrysostom stepped in. Right? So can you imagine living in this type of city that's like full of extravagances and luxuries, and there's the rich, and there's so much sin that is there. But he was always stepping in, making sure that things were done right. And he would step in even in ministers' faces, right? So there was a lot of politics that was going on, and a lot of this politics was, it's hindering his duties. And one of the things that kind of broke the camel's back was him and the empress. So him and the empress weren't in good relations anyways. But what happened was there was this time where there was a patriarch in Alexandria. His name was Theophilus. Okay, and what happened here? It was just really weird circumstances, right? I don't need to go too deep into this, but what happened was Theophilus was summoned by the emperor to Constantinople to apologize before a synod in which Chrysostom should preside for some charges which were brought against Theophilus by some Egyptian monks or something along that line, okay? And so Theophilus came to Constantinople, and he knew the state of things and the feelings at the court. and he wanted to take advantage of them. Resolved. He now resolved to take advantage of this situation. So what happened is Theophilus wrote to another saint in Cyprus, okay? And he requested him to go to Constantinople and prevail upon Chrysostom to condemn the Origenists, okay? So what basically happens here is Theophilus goes to the capital. He doesn't go alone. He goes with like 29 other people, like what were they, like his like some bishops and suffragans, right? 29 of them. And they had a lot of money and all sorts of gifts. And he took, he went to his lodgings in the imperial palaces, held conferences with all the adversaries of Chrysostom. This was very, very interesting. Okay. And what happened was, one thing that you do need to know is Chrysostom actually during that time delivered a sermon against the vain luxury of women. And it was reported to the empress as though he was talking about her. So you know that there's something bad going on. And then Theophilus comes and he's working with the empress. And what happens is the next day, okay, what happens? A long list of the most ridiculous accusations was drawn up against Chrysostom, right? Surrounded by 42 archbishops and bishops assembled to judge Theophilus, right? In accordance with the orders of the emperor, who is now summoned to present himself and apologize, right? So this was originally for Theophilus, but then it turns to him. So Chrysostom naturally refused to recognize the legality of a synod in which his open enemies were judges. So after the third summons, Chrysostom, with the consent of the emperor, was declared to be deposed, right? No longer the bishop. And in order to avoid useless bloodshed, he surrendered himself on the third day to the soldiers who awaited him. But the threats of the excited people, remember, very negative, and a sudden accident in the imperial palace frightened the empress, okay? So she was now scared that some punishment from heaven, she'd be judged by the heavens, right, for exiling Chrysostom, and then immediately ordered his recall. And after some hesitation, Chrysostom re-entered the capital amid the great rejoicings of the people. Theophilus and his party saved themselves by flying from Constantinople, like fleeing away. And Chrysostom's return was in itself a defeat for the empress. So, when her alarms had gone, she kind of, her rancor revived. So 2 months afterwards, a silver statue of the empress was unveiled in the square just before the cathedral. And the public celebrations which attended this incident and lasted several days became so boisterous that the offices in the church were disturbed. Chrysostom complained of this to the prefect of the city, who reported to the empress that the bishop had complained against her statue. So it's a wrong reporting. And of course, this made the empress really upset. And she summoned Theophilus and the other bishops to come back and to depose Chrysostom again. But Theophilus didn't want to run the risk this second time. So he only wrote to Constantinople that Chrysostom should be condemned for having re-entered his seat in opposition to an article of the Synod of Antioch held in the year 341. And the other bishops had neither the authority nor the courage to give a formal judgment, and all they could do was to urge the emperor to sign a new decree of exile for Chrysostom. So it was basically a double attempt on Chrysostom's life failed again. And on Easter Eve 404, when all the where everyone is receiving their baptisms, the adversaries of the bishop, right, of Chrysostom, with imperial soldiers, invaded the baptistery and dispersed the whole congregation. And at last, Arcadius signed the decree, and on June 24th, 404, the soldiers conducted Chrysostom a second time into exile. So now he's going into exile, right? And into exile, he was hastily replaced by Arsacius, an old man. He's a new bishop of Constantinople. But then he was soon succeeded by the cunning Atticus, right? And basically, the emperor said whoever refused to enter into communion with them was punished by confiscation of property and exile. So, even Chrysostom himself was conducted to, he was kind of exiled away to a place called Kukusas, a secluded, rugged place. And, there was constant wars happening on that side too. This is kind of where the end of Chrysostom comes. So by this time, all hopes of the exiled Bishop Chrysostom coming back had basically vanished. And, for his adversaries, people were kind of upset that he was living too long. So in the summer of 407, the order was given to carry him to Pythias, a place at the extreme boundary of the empire near the Caucasus. And one of the two soldiers who had to lead him caused him all possible sufferings, and he was forced to make long marches, was exposed to the rays of the sun, to rains and the cold nights. His body, already weakened by several severe illnesses, finally broke down. And on September 14th, the party, they were in Pontus. And in the morning, Chrysostom had asked to rest there on the account of his state of health. In vain, he was forced to continue his march, and very soon he felt so weak that he had to return to Comana. Some hours later, Chrysostom died. His last words were, "Glory be to God for all things." And he was buried in Comana on January 27th, 438. So, he's lived that crazy life, and it was the politics that got involved with the religion that caused all this to happen, even though it was very, very unfair, the trials that he went through. So people say that all the scholars say that Chrysostom deserves a place in ecclesiastical history, not just the Bishop of Constantinople, but as a doctor of the church and one of like a Greek father, and so many writings that he made. So he's very, very famous, right? Saint Chrysostom, John Chrysostom. But yeah, I didn't know much about him, but he's considered to be one of the greatest speakers, right, in Christian history. Interesting, right? So there it is, guys. That is John Chrysostom. Hopefully that's someone that you can research and look into too. Very, very interesting and amazing also. Okay, so there it is, guys. That is the end of today's Foundational Figures. Hope it's something that you guys really enjoyed, which means we'll get into the second break of the day before we get into Health is Happiness.
This is on a high level, you can't catch us. We the fastest, you the turtle. We the cheapest. Slicing demon like fajitas. I'm just crazy with ideas, so don't you make me turn into your greatest fear. I'm just shining brightly like the star of Hollywood. I just said I care like the little engine could. Made my dreams for real with the action that I took. Celebrate the win, cause it feels so good. Thought it'd be over, but we put up a fight. Move to the left because this history's right. You thought we stumbled, but we finished. Achieved victory, we did it. Put your hands up high, cause now we won. Sometimes it's hard when my head is up high. He worked too hard for you to say it's a lie. You thought he stumbled, but he finished. Achieved victory, we did it. And my hands are up like I got that go, rock him till like flames. And there's way too much inside my brain. We shine the light like cannot be contained. We got the truth, we figured it out, you know we ain't fake. Determination in my eyes, got my eyes on the prize. They looking staring at the sky, they don't know about these times. But I'ma just keep on just killing it. They looking at us like we villains. They silly, I'm like really, don't you know I'ma kill it. I'm not dropping low, everything I do for him is not just for show. They come and they go, but I don't value my position staying for show. You wanna be great, you have to have the vision and the purpose for it. RP to the face, cause they're gonna all get exploited. Thought it'd be over, but we put up a fight. Move to the left because this history's right. You thought we stumbled, but we finished. Achieved victory, we did it. Put your hands up high, cause now we won. Sometimes it's hard when my head is up high. He worked too hard for you to say it's a lie. You thought he stumbled, but he finished. Achieved victory, we did it. And my hands are up like I got that go, rock him till like flames. And there's way too much inside my brain. We shine that light like cannot be contained. We got the truth, we figured it out, you know we ain't playing. Win, cut it off, stand, sing. Got me like, they keep fucking while we win. Yeah, win, cut it off, sing. Got me like, they keep fucking while we win.
Okay, so let's get into our final segment for today's Wednesday podcast. Hope you guys have been enjoying it so far. We have Health is Happiness with Yen Yu over there in Singapore. She's doing an amazing and awesome job. And today we're getting into a new section about preventing injuries. Okay, so this Preventing Injuries episode 1, and it's kind of an overview on preventing injuries. So I hope you guys will really enjoy this. Please welcome all the way from Singapore. This is Yen Yu with Health is Happiness.
Hello everyone, my name is Yuan Yu and I'm from Singapore. I'm currently finishing up my studies in physiotherapy. On today's topic of Health is Happiness, I will be talking about an overview on preventing injuries or illnesses. I'd like to give thanks to the Holy Trinity for this opportunity, as well as Julius and Pastor Sky for this platform. As a disclaimer, this is general health advice. In previous episodes, we covered about how to respond to injuries, such that in the event we do face an injury, we are better prepared to deal with them. Besides learning about how to respond to injuries, equally important is prevention. Because if we were to get injuries or fall ill, then that would mean a pause in our exercise training or other commitments, which hinders our improvement or even causes us to lose the fitness that we have already put in so much effort into previously. However, while being able to prevent injuries and minimizing the chances of things going wrong, there are still aspects that we cannot control and problems can still occur. But today, I'll share more about injury prevention, which can prevent a large proportion of injuries. Firstly, I'll share about injuries, then followed by illnesses. For injuries, I would share 3 key things that we can do to prevent them. Firstly, exercise regularly. Irregular or the absence of training puts one at risk of injuries as our bodies naturally lose muscle strength and joint mobility after a period of inactivity. On the flip side, being too active is a risk of overtraining and overstressing the body. Ideally, it's best to gradually increase how much you exercise, which means how many days a week you're exercising, the amount and intensity that you exercise each time. Secondly, warm up and cool down. Warm up, especially for any exercise that is of moderate to vigorous intensity, is very important. Warm up prepares the body for the activity that you'll be doing by causing our body's cardiovascular system to pump more blood to the working muscles, soft tissues, and parts that are involved so that our muscles can become more elastic and ready for higher intensity activity. Cool down. Similarly, for cool down, when we finish the exercise, a good cool down routine ensures our body to recover from the training session and return to resting state. The cool down period should include a period of low intensity aerobic work, such as active recovery, which acts as active recovery, and this lets the body's cardiovascular system to circulate blood to the heart in different parts of the body and not let the blood pool in the muscles. This cooldown period also allows waste products that are formed during exercise, for instance lactic acid, to circulate back into the system to create new energy stores required for the next activity. This would reduce the amount of muscle ache, or also known as delayed onset of muscle soreness, DOMS, reduce the amount of muscle ache that you have, allowing you to recover faster. In addition to the cool down period of a low intensity aerobic exercise, like for instance jogging, a slow jog, or doing a walk, flexibility or mobility exercises being added to the routine also do help. These exercises can come in the form of stretches at the end of the exercise session, should be done and are encouraged to be done to maintain our mobility. Having full range of our joints is important to prevent injury and improve our performance. Having adequate rest. Having adequate rest, especially on the days that you exercise, is important for our body to recover. Exercise causes stress on the body, after which only with sufficient rest does the body repair itself, and the muscles, bones, and soft tissues involved then get stronger through this process. Insufficient rest results in accumulation of stress on the body, which means that despite exercising, you might not be able to improve and get stronger because the body doesn't have enough time to recover. Now I'll move on to illness. For illnesses, there are two major causes. Firstly, infectious, and secondly, non-infectious diseases. For infectious diseases, these are caused by disease-producing agents such as bacteria, virus, fungi, and parasites. These agents can enter the body through the air you breathe, through the food you consume, and through opening of the skin like cuts. Not all agents that enter the body result in illnesses because our bodies have an immune system that fights these foreign agents. However, people with weakened immune systems or immune systems that are fighting against more resistant agents, these immune systems might not be able to resist the effects of these foreign agents and therefore would cause an infectious disease. Some things that you can do to prevent infectious diseases involves practicing personal hygiene, developing a strong immune system, which I'll elaborate a bit more later on. As for non-infectious diseases, it is caused by a combination of factors like environment, lifestyle, and genetic factors. And some examples of non-infectious diseases includes cancer, diabetes, heart diseases, etc. Some things that we can do to prevent non-infectious diseases are having a well-balanced diet, adequate rest, regular exercise, as well as to reduce exposure of modifiable risk factors like smoking, whether it's first-hand or second-hand, and pollutants. I will now elaborate a bit more about some of the key things that we can do to reduce our chances of getting illnesses. 4 things in total. Firstly, personal hygiene. This is the most basic preventive measure because if we're able to make sure the food and the drinks that we consume are clean, then it does reduce the chances of getting any illness by a large proportion. Avoid sharing food or drinks with others, especially if it is also good to cultivate the habit of keeping yourself clean at all times, for instance, by washing our hands frequently. Second is to boost our body's immune system. This can be done through a wide variety of ways. One of them is through having adequate rest, because if we're sleep deprived, then our body's immune system doesn't have the time to recharge to fight off foreign agents. Another way is through having a well-balanced diet. And while it may be difficult to consume a proper meal due to the availability of food or time constraints, any attempt to add fresh fruits, vegetables, enough protein and carbohydrates to our diet, as well as limiting consumption of refined sugars, highly processed foods, will strengthen our immune system. Another factor is to also drink sufficient water, because water helps our body to flush out toxins and waste products more effectively. Thirdly, it is to set aside time to relax and unwind. Periods of high stress due to deadlines or work can depress the immune system. This is especially so if we have chronic stress, which means high levels of stress for prolonged periods of time. Do take the time to pace yourself, as well as do make sure that you have time for yourself to manage your stress levels. For instance, some activities that you can do is relaxing things like reading a book, going for a walk, breathing exercises, and listening to music. Fourth point, it is to avoid crowded areas when you can, and especially after a high-intensity exercise session or when you're not feeling well. Crowded areas are breeding grounds for viruses that can easily spread from person to person. For instance, flu outbreaks occur when a large number of people are in a confined space like a classroom and there is someone having that flu already. Try to avoid crowded places, especially after a hard exercise session where your body is already subjected to stress and more susceptible to infection. And if, let's say, you're in a company of people who are feeling unwell, then do keep a safe distance to avoid being infected. I'm sure that if you politely excuse yourself from being in close proximity, the other person should be understandable and not take offense. These are the four key things that we can do to reduce the risk and prevent ourselves from getting illnesses. With that, we've come to the end of today's sharing about preventing injuries or illnesses. Hope that everyone understands a little bit more, and now we know at least one more thing that we can do to keep ourselves healthier and prevent unnecessary problems from occurring. Thank you so much for listening, and all the best to everyone. Let's continue to keep ourselves healthy, physically, mentally, and spiritually. Goodbye.
And thank you so much, Yuan for another wonderful episode of Health is Happiness. We are starting a brand new series about preventing injuries. I hope you got a good overall view from this. Everyone, I hope you guys have enjoyed these Health is Happiness episodes. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead, leave it in the comments below. All right. So there it is, guys. That is today's Wednesday podcast. Hope you guys super enjoyed it. Remember, tomorrow is Q&A Thursday. And if you have any questions, just drop them in my DMs or in the comments below. All right. Everyone have an awesome service tonight. And we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and feel your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like